There you go. Now we're gonna go ahead and see this 101. We're gonna call this meeting to order. Understanding Outcome Commission. You're gonna start with public comments. Is there any members of the public here that wish to speak? All right. Where do I stand? Wherever you'd like to, yeah.
Or you could sit here if you.
Over here, you just announce your name and your address, you know the drill.
Okay. I have a few extra copies. The person taking minutes has them. I'm Kathleen Prop, 1936 Hazel Street, Oshkosh. And you don't want to hear what I have to say, but I feel compelled to say it. I'm here to call the Winnebago County process for spending ARPA funds fishy. It looks fishy, it smells fishy. So there's a possibility it might be fishy. And I don't like to think that, but this is a perception. From the start, I believe that the county board and executive have made poor decisions. The October resolution to spend the entire 33 million to cover so-called lost revenue. Fishy. I do not believe that federal auditors or independent analysts would find any significant lost revenue to the Winnebago County under the category of those wages they were talking about. So thank you for trying to salvage that mistake. But fishier yet, a spirit fund? To me, a spirit is something you can't see, you can't touch, you can't really know about it. I suppose that does describe the spirit fund, an accounting maneuver to manipulate money and I hope not hide actual spending from the federal government and the public, from the federal government and the public, and maybe even from the county board itself. I don't want to think that, but each level of government hands out money is entitled to know if the money is spent for the purpose intended. The county board expects to know if money it hands out is spent correctly. If the county is trying to avoid federal auditors, as this says, that's a red flag telling me that this process needs to be audited. I agree with the supervisors quoted in the Oshkosh Herald article who expressed my concerns well. ARPA money of 33 million is significant one-time money. County residents are entitled to straightforward, transparent decisions made in public with a long list of appropriate projects debated by this ARPA commission, not a spirit commission, and the full county board. Today's so-called spirit decisions will spend about 1/4 of this $33 million. Are these really priority needs for the county? How do these projects rank in the long list of appropriate projects? And I don't know the answer to that, so I'm not complaining about any specific project. I'm asking you to start over and please do this process right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public who wish to speak? Anybody else in here? I'd like to go to Zoom. Anybody on Spoon or on Zoom that would like to speak? Like Conley has his hand up.
Yes, he does.
Is that my cue?
Yeah, that's your cue.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I don't want to say I echo the previous comments, but I would like to hear those addressed if that is permissible on the agenda. There are several items on today's agenda that I am hoping can get advanced toward the board for a vote. And because it's my understanding that the funds are available, and advancing these projects in a timely manner becomes even more urgent as inflationary pricing begins to erode our buying power if it's delayed any further. Just as a side note, on your agenda right now is item number 10, and Captain Vindola, I see is there. I would encourage anyone to ask her any questions. I would really like to see this particular one advanced because the units are becoming obsolete and need to be replaced. And this is a public safety issue that I believe is paramount. So I again would encourage anyone to ask her any questions or refer to the JPS committee presentation that was made. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak? Unless on Zoom or in this room that would like to speak? One more time, anybody else would like to speak? All right, seeing none, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the approval of the minutes. And a motion and then possible discussion. So moved. Second. Second. All right, any discussion on minutes?
So my, John, question regarding process. And I'll refer to number 3. And Mike, I'm a little concerned about the process we're using. That was approved at the last commission meeting to distribute the $3 million equally. I'm on number 3, the last part of the paragraph. I received a motion and a second. Normally, when these are approved by commission or committee, they advance to the county attorney to draft a resolution and take it forward to the county board. Are we using a different process here?
Well, the particular matter was only on the agenda to discuss the process for that.
I had asked them to clarify that from the chairman.
So the way I
And the
interpret,
chairman said it was okay to bring the motion forward.
If it's an action.
in my interpretation, and I did consult with Corporation Counsel about it, it was okay to discuss that, to have a motion on record that the commission was going to consider that allocation so made, that being a decision done by the commission, but to send a resolution to the board just based on that. And normally we have the resolution submitted in the board packet now for the whatever the commission or board or committee to vote on and send to the county board. So we certainly didn't have that, and we didn't have it on the agenda that way. So to send a resolution based on that, we felt would present a potential open meetings issue, since that wasn't on the agenda as something where we were looking to send a resolution and make a spending decision as opposed to just consider the process.
I asked the chairman from the previous meeting, because I asked that question directly to the chairman. Is this an actionable item? His response was yes.
And my answer from that, from what I remember on that, the question was, discussion and possible act. And I did say yes on that, so action to me means we can vote on it. Action.
Well, we did vote on it, and that was action. Question is, what is the action? I
Okay,
suppose.
my question, why is it on the county board agenda for the next meeting?
My understanding is that the agenda for the last meeting only allowed action by the commission to allocate that money or to determine the process. So by saying we are going to have the process be restricted to that certain amount for each municipality was with the language of the agenda, but to send a resolution to the board authorizing that spending right now would not be within the action allowed by the agenda. So I'm having to draw kind of a fine line between the action of the commission, just saying this is how we're going to handle that amount, and action by the board and saying we're actually spending this amount.
Are you saying then that even though if this commission approves something by voice vote at a meeting which is within chapter 19, that the second step would be to bring back a resolution defining that motion, and then go to the county board because you're delaying it a month, what you're doing?
If I may for a second, the clarification that I want from the motion, because I understand exactly what we did. We pretty much, as a committee, voted to, when we allocate that 3 million, to allocate it evenly amongst towns and municipalities. Was the proposal to just cut a check to everybody individually? I guess what's the question? Are we gonna look at projects coming in and give everybody that's where my confusion is. Or we actually allocating, cutting a check to everybody individually? Was that the intent?
The next step in the process would be, and if you read the resolution appointing this commission, the commission will decide what funds will be approved. They will forward that, and I quote, to the county board for approval. Your question and others need to come forward at the county board level. We've done it. So I'm just concerned about the delay in getting it to the county board.
And if I may just one last time, I guess the confusion on my end was I didn't realize it was approving 130,000 to go blankly to every county municipality.
Yes, county board fund.
Correct.
Right.
No, correct, yep, and I just thought we were looking at the process and we were going to, when we divvy up the 3 million, 130, and so we're not waiting on projects to come in, and is that the intent? Because I think maybe that's,
Exactly, I think that's correct.
and that's maybe where I didn't understand. So that is what you wanted to do, is to propose the 130,000 as a check just to go out to all municipalities and townships.
Yeah, I think the minutes clearly state that.
Okay.
Well, and if that's the intent though, to actually send that money, I don't think a decision on spending that money was within the scope of the agenda last meeting. It was the process. So the process says we're allocating that 136,000 or whatever the number is. So we're only going to look for proposals or however the money is going to be spent in that box. You know, a box worth 100 and some thousand per municipality. Well, then I think that action would require something different on the agenda. Because the agenda only had the process, action on the process. We can have an action which is determining the process. And that's what was on the agenda.
The way it was termed was discussion and possible action regarding the process to solicit and collect requests for community projects. An alternative was the request to form. Okay, and then we were going to either pick and choose, or do we select the 22 municipalities of the $3 million net division came out to 136.
Right.
So that was part of the entire discussion.
I believe that, and that's the question. Was it a policy? Was it a process vote? Or was it an allocation vote? And the intent was an allocation vote, correct? That's what it said was.
If we approve these minutes, the word is allocate.
$3 million.
Well, we would have to defer to corporate
Well-
council if we can do that. That's the question.
I mean, that's what I did confer with Corp Counsel right after the last meeting. She was concerned that a vote to actually spend that money was not within the scope of the agenda. So it would be a violation if that's how.
Are you using the word spend or allocate?
Well, I would distinguish between those two.
Yeah.
Something that goes to county board is an appropriation. So I'd use that terminology. Something determined by the board as an appropriation means we can spend it. An allocation means we've got our spreadsheet. You know, we also had a vote on taking the money for the generator out of one pocket rather than another. The board isn't deciding those things. Those are kind of our tally sheet about how we're allocating the money preparatory to sending requests for actual appropriations to the board. So that's why I didn't send it to the board, because I think the agenda only allowed us to do that kind of internal allocation. We're considering that the process. We're not going to look, for instance, our process will not allow for submissions of requests from towns and other municipalities greater than 136,000. So that's legitimately a process issue. But if we go beyond that and say we're actually appropriating the money to give to the towns, I think that would require a different agenda item, which we can put on next time if that's the commission's will.
Yes, ma'am.
And so in other words, anytime there's a discussion on the possible action or discussion and action, that don't mean anything to this committee. Unless you put it right in black and white what's doing.
I think it
I
does.
would like to have Mr. Collins.
Sure.
Please.
The other agenda items say things like discussion of possible action regarding a resolution, meaning to send it to the board. That's where resolutions go.
So then why, and I don't remember this being said, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember being submitted to the county board in July, 2023. I'm wondering, and I think I asked this the other day, why you put this on the agenda for this month.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I'm asking why this wasn't put on the agenda for this month for the county board.
For this month.
Why we're waiting till January. It's put in parentheses, and I don't remember the motion being put like that. I'm just asking these questions for clarification. Like the lady that spoke back there, this is not clarified to everyone, and everybody should know what's going on out there, and we can clarify it amongst ourselves and what's written in our minutes. It's pretty hard for people to know.
Oh, for the record, is there anything on these minutes that you would like to propose to change? First and foremost, is there amendment we want to make on these minutes themselves outside the process?
Yeah, number one, I don't think number four, I don't think was ever said to be submitted to county board in January 2023. And that's one thing I don't think was ever put in that motion. And once too late, it's already done. We've had to have it in by Monday at noon. If you want anything put on the agenda. So we can't change it now, but I don't know who put that in there, but I do not think that was done. And discussion action and possible action, that should have been on there too, and I'm the one that moved that, because I had it up to number 4 and I think moved it to 5. If you're gonna call it the spirit fund, the purchase of installing emergency generator for Sunnyview was on $853,016. That should go ahead and we'll put on this month too, so we can get things going. If this money is gonna be available to us right after the 1st of January, we gotta get things going. We're sitting here, all these other people they're spending money, and I don't know what we're holding it for. It's beyond me. Why everybody wants to hold on to this amount of money. We should be able to be doing things like that. So after the 1st of January, we're ready to get the road running. And I'm afraid for whatever reason, whatever not being here, whether it's a mistake in here or what it is, but I'm afraid these minutes are not correct. So I'll make a motion that we don't approve these minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Which means
That these minutes are not acceptable as written.
any discussion on that? What is the process for amending? Yeah. It's that. If I may be frank for a bit here in a little candid, I think this is what happens when we decide to legislate from the committee. You know, instead of coming with intent to figure it out with administration or the corporation council to bring a proposed resolution that's clear to a committee instead of making amendments on the floor of the board, it gets a little ugly. The hesitation that I have with it, whether or not it's acceptable or not, is that I don't feel like we're as open to the public as we thought we could have. That was a discussion item. And as a co-chair, I had no idea that was coming. Which is why I would like to see draft resolutions coming, so we're all very clear on the intent of what we're doing. And when we do that, we end up in messes like this. And I think one of the reasons why we were unsure of what to bring forward to the county board is because we're not sure if you have the authority, if it says to consider the process, and then we turn around to allocate. There's nothing on it, so we're actually allocating money. Secondly, I completely understand your desire to make sure the county don't get left out. I think that's very valid. I think it's a very valid concern. But at the same point, I hesitate to approve blank checks for 130,000 if we don't even know what the project's. I think that is not a wise policy decision for us to do. Although I do agree with the idea of making sure that the towns are remembered, because it's very valid. So I think we need to work on trust and the process manner will get together and talk these things out before we get there. Instead of trying to legislate these things from before the committee. Because then confusion is there. Corporation Council isn't sure if we have the authority to push this forward. I wasn't sure of the intent. I just thought that we were separating, much like the 25, 50, 25. I thought that's what we were doing. And then when the project come forward, we would approve those from the towns and municipalities. So that is my mistake. I will take full responsibility. And I thought that was the intent of what we're doing. I didn't realize that we were just blessing the Choctaw municipalities without actually looking to see if there's any projects that are within the spirit of ARPA. So that being said, I guess we will all find out next time what happens when we don't agree.
I would just like to say something.
Sure.
I'm also co-chairman and I did not know where this come from. So I just figured it was coming from the administration. All these things. I did not get it until you got it.
Sure.
So I don't know who's writing these up, but it's not you or I.
I'm talking about the motion for the 3 million.
So I'm talking about the whole agenda.
Right.
So how do we know what's on the agenda? Who's writing this up? If you didn't read what's been on the agenda, and I'm not getting it until later, I got it, but it was like late, it's already there.
Sure.
How are we going to know how are we going to have the trust?
Can you give me a timeline of that with like, in, you want to do a meeting where we come in and sit down with staff to come up with the agenda together? Would that work better?
Somehow, and as long as we're talking about this,
Sure.
minutes and everything is supposed to go a week ahead of time.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify that. So something's got to be done. If we're going to have the trust, it's going to have to be trust between all of us.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor. Colbert was on there. Colbert.
Just real quick, Mike, did we not have a conversation at our last meeting that there's some things that have to happen to go back to the federal government? We have to wait until the end of the year to get the final numbers. And that's will come that we have from January.
Yes.
Hold on a second. Let him finish, please.
know where he's going.
Supervisor Cox, please. You do not have the floor.
I'm done.
You're done. Okay. No, Supervisor Cox.
Tom, we all had that discussion last time around. And we decided that the dollars or the formula that you're using called out that we would be able to use all of the honest look at all of the negative or of the lost revenue. And in a way, after the first of the year, you had not used that entire period of time in your calculation. And that's one of the reasons why we stopped in midstream our discussion. So now we're going to wait until the first of the year before we start dropping resolutions, especially resolutions that require to have dollar amounts or percentage amounts that were not in that particular resolution we were looking at last time. And we needed you to finish out the year with the total amount of lost revenue so that we could come back with a corrected and full body resolution for the board. And then we went ahead and voted on it. We said we were going to wait on that until the first of the year. You adding to what I have to say, Beth, or am I gonna?
So I'm going to contradict what you said.
Go
We discussed that the 33 million, the 33 million was the appropriate number, and it didn't make a difference how it was divided between those two, because we were trusting that accounting had the right division, and that the total was going to be 33 million. So instead of putting it off, this is how I remember the discussion, was instead of waiting to determine how it's broken out, we knew that the full amount was going to be 33 million.
And in that resolution, that you were looking at the time, we had blanks in there that were not. So that we could carry it forward to the board. That is what I stopped, said, look, you've got to wait. So you've got the entire usage of that you can take.
And
Honest numbers.
I believe Mr. Collier said that it is more than the 33 million. We just had to make sure to figure out which bucket it appropriately came from the general and from that park view. But it would easily add up to 33 million more. And we were against it, and I remember that. But I believe we voted to approve because we knew the number would come out to be the 33 million, because we wanted to get this going, because this has been going on for so long.
And to me, where I look at this is that there's a number at the top and we don't know what that number is. But there's a whole bunch of work underneath that I thought we'd be doing, like, okay, the application, the town did. That, you know, and we could get all that done, because when it starts out, the story problem, that in order to do the story problem, you gotta start with the amount that you don't have, but we'll get it. And we kind of do what it is, but rather than get all hung up on what that number is, let's work on our gymnastics, I guess I might call them, underneath the, how we're gonna get everything coming in what form. So when we do get the number, well.
Thank you. Back to your comments. My concern is process. Now, what you're saying, if I understood you correctly, based on your discussion with Corp, that this committee can only vote on resolutions that are drafted? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying
Well, then my motion to approve that funding is valid.
that's the question.
You are the one that's, and the Corp Council are misinterpreting my motion. If I were to accept your proposal, each of us who had something they wanted to spend money for or allocate from this fund would have to draft a resolution and have it put on the agenda to bring forward to the commission. And that process, in my opinion, is just backwards. We, as a commission, operate under the same Robert's Rules of Order as a committee. Committees, you have an agenda item. You approve or disapprove what's on the agenda item. Then we send it to Corp Council. They draft the resolution to support the motion and take it to the county board. Why can't we do that here? What's so complicated about this commission? That we can't follow the same rules we've been doing for the last 20 years. I don't understand.
Never stop. We can do that. We can absolutely do that. The only thing I was saying is sometimes that's what makes it confusing. When we don't have it up front, when we don't know exactly the wording we're doing, and that was the confusion we had. I thought that we were just splitting that out, much like we did 25, 50, 25. That was, I didn't realize that was an actual allocation. That's on me.
But then you would have supported them. You were against.
I did vote against that. I probably would have voted against that.
Premise, because I think you didn't agree with equally dividing it amongst the communities.
Correct.
You had a different focus for the money, which is entirely your prerogative. But to say now you misunderstood my motion, I just don't understand it.
I guess I misunderstood that we were talking about the cost of splitting it between all evenly or actually allocating evenly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you would be, if you want to use that term,
I would have against either or.
evenly to the municipality.
Correct.
We must bear in mind that all the municipalities have the $10 million exclusion. The county has opted to take a $33 million exclusion. So now, if you want to tie what we're going to give to the municipalities to ARPA projects, they're using the exclusion. Right? So they can use the money for whatever they choose as a board within their town on a project. I don't understand. You're creating a double standard of what you're doing.
Well, I think we're getting a little off topic here.
Well, I really think if we're gonna keep going forward, we need to define this process.
We do.
And I really think this should have been on the December agenda for the county board. That not being the case, it exemplifies the need to define the process we're going to use.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion made and seconded on the floor. I'd like to
Yes.
Call the question.
Thank you.
Continue on with a lot of work.
Yep. So to clarification on the motion right now is to not approve the minutes, correct?
There was a motion to approve the minutes.
No.
Then there was a motion to not approve the minutes,
All right. the motion-
which frankly wasn't in order.
or-
We have to deal with the motion to approve the minutes first.
All right, we'll do the motion to approve the minutes first. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay.
Hey,
We'll come back to that at a later date. Is that how that works? Correct?
I don't know, I've never seen that happen before. 25 years.
We'll all learn together.
used to happen in the town of Anita, almost everybody.
All right. Moving on to discussion item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the process to solicit, collect requests for community projects. Tom, I like that. I had this over you.
Tried to create a slimmed down application that would make it easy enough for us to take a first look at anybody who applies for these monies. So, maybe some of the copies. And then leaving enough room for narrative, but not too much room because narrative kind of be subjective. I don't want a project to be approved because somebody did a good writer. So this is the draft. I've got a graphic artist for different parts of it or change it or add it on them. So any input is welcome. My question is how to advance this into the community so every single hospital actually gets to look at this and know what it's saying. How to do that.
Stage of definitely being that it's in the back of the clerks, like when they're for the towns and villages.
The newspapers, the Herald, and the Congo, and the chamber websites, ODC websites, all the community foundations, and all the things. The possible things.
I agree with you that particular community foundations, they know all these people. Legal sense. Yeah. I think that would be. Did we have concerns or about understanding how Montgomery County and their project affects? Do you want to add that as a question or is that?
Well, put in locations and anything in summary description in regard to you would add. We could have a separate line item that wouldn't be too difficult, but we're gonna know where to begin. So it's not like we don't know how.
Yeah.
That's my real goal.
That works for me as well.
And the point we're discussing, it is the American right to find that on the application, it's not. So that's what you have to do.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's the obvious. If we approve this today, so that indeed the action statement by the previous commission
Well, this is
going forward.
so it was an application for funding that we would approve today. I'm not sure the county board would approve this, and so then we're not approving until January 20th. And I don't know that the county board would have to approve the application.
For that,
I would say they wouldn't have to because they've only got to know where the money's going to.
Yeah.
So it's still approved the funding.
Right.
Now, this is one form, is there another one that you're talking about?
I tried to figure out how to incorporate the county community project monies, but then I saw the actions contemplated today, and I thought, well, it's apparent that much of that is already in place because we have 6 applications of community county money. So I don't know if that's a internal county
Yeah.
thing on, if you if that's something I already told people about it, but so I don't think we need to see that. So really just an external application for funding for ARPA funds. In my opinion.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, and this would be for community organizations, not county entities and nonprofits, correct?
It would be nonprofits, right?
Nonprofits.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
or people, I mean, anybody can apply for funding and you sift out the initial funding. I mean, I was asked for more information. Those extra questions I added, location impacts, project start and completion, and as a banker, I still, if I give somebody $1 million to build a $1 million building, I want to know how, when, where. I mean, I'm used to doing private company work and all those kinds of things, so that's important to me too.
And I would suggest, these are great questions. I think this might be like, here are the instructions, here are the things we want to, as a first page, and there's the application. Yeah.
The tax credit is one. So have that as intro paragraph, and then do the application, and we can make page 2 with the potential questions or Q&A, something like that.
Because being specific about this is really for, not intended for overhead working capital.
Right.
That'll help weed out a huge portion, such as putting that up on board.
And much of the nonprofit is asking for
Yeah.
that's going to be so.
Someone who previously wrote, it's nice to know what are you looking for? What
Right.
information do you want, which will help pare down the paragraph
Right.
and get it really positive.
Any discussion of this process?
Just, the 10 million we gave all back when I told them, we put some spending.
Well, it's still ARPA dollars. So there's funding attached to it.
All right, because I'm just saying, I didn't know, and I don't think we'd be placed to put up this first one, but when we get farther into it, accountability. Well, all we need to find out if you are doing what you're saying. I don't go on this, you should go on that day, or do it small.
I was thinking of leaning on Supervisor Fox's discussion about that committee that monitors using sources,
Personnel finance.
personal finance that make sure everything is done as approved.
Well, it would come to us, we would make sure that it's accounted for as it goes on. And the process.
And with it being one-time, non-reoccurring, did the project happen? Yes or no? I mean, it does simplify it by it just being, did it happen? It didn't, or, and if, I mean, we could put parameters that it was, say, for a building project, that you're staying in that building or that space for 5 years, or something like that. That would be an easy 5 years from now to verify it. Simple.
Our award notification for spell
Oh, sure.
out. It's reflected in the audit.
But then again, that's gonna be later on.
Yeah, we'll be after our.
This, like you're speaking, it's
Any discussion on this? A motion to approve this as the process?
Are we clear on where this applies? So, all right, well, here, you have county internal labs. We have 3 categories.
Yeah.
And then you have community projects through county functions. And then, of course, the last one I believe is the nonprofit category.
Yeah.
Community external. Does this apply to all 3 categories?
I believe it's just the external aspect.
Okay, all right, and that should be so stipulated in the motion. What?
Why couldn't this apply to all?
Simple.
And you know,
if it applied to them, that's the application, I would think.
Now I see one other thing. We may want to, are you a registered 501, are you a registered nonprofit? We probably would want nonprofit.
Not necessarily, I would think it is. We'll go there before we open. We have to, I know, 501c3, all those other organizations, but that's detailed. I can have a question about that.
Or and your nonprofit. Does it your
Pakistan,
designation? Yeah, give a look.
and some might be for profit, but the times we go to housing, that's for profit. Hopefully.
No,
So we'll start with the motion first. You want to make sure that this is clear. This is for the community external.
External project.
Yep, external project application. Any discussion on that? Or a second on that? So,
Who made the motion?
Chuck,
Thank you.
any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then, Tom, did you want to leave it as is, or, and we'll deal with the county community ask later?
I like it this way, but I'm good with more section one, which is added, so I think this is very good, simple, and you can read. Once you read them, you never know where they fit in.
Yeah.
Right. I will make that more.
Okay, any second on that?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
this is to move, this is
Yes.
the application for all three publics.
No, just the external.
Yeah.
External.
External. Thank you.
Otherwise, we've got to redo everything. Today.
1.5%. We'll still get this off of the community.
Mhm.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to some of the remaining ones that are talking about dollars for specific projects. Just to check, we started off with some discussion about the process versus allocation versus appropriation. I just want to make clear, ask for clarity on what this commission can actually do. Because no one showed me the checkbook.
Sure.
We don't write any checks. So we're making recommendations, in my opinion, to the county board based on the deliberations that we took here trying to vet project. Okay.
I'd add something. Of course, that is by resolution. Anything goes before the county board will have to be done by resolution, that type of form that document. And I think that's where the misunderstanding.
And that for 2/3.
Yeah, it could be, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The law requirement.
Moving on to discussion item number 4, discussion of possible action regarding resolution authorizing a transfer of $175,000 from the spirit fund to the general fund for the purpose of funding budgeted expenses in the county executive's office for assistance with strategic planning and Friday-based budget.
Question for all three of us, two of the following.
Item, can we get a motion before discussion?
I'm going to approve
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
On the order before we move on. Number 4, number 5, and number 6. Removing funds. Removing the spirit funds to the general fund for purpose of funding a budgeted expense in all cases, which has been funded before by undesignated fundment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Where is the resolution accompanying? What resolution did you use
To answer your question, the Expo Center was appropriated through the budget process. The $300,000 was appropriated through the budget process, and $175,000 was appropriated. Was that last board meeting?
Resolution 110-10-2022, so it was October. It's on the whereas clause.
Okay, next clause. Yep.
Members of the Chairman,
Please.
just for clarification, him and I had this discussion prior to the meeting starting. And the concern was, well, we used budgeted and funds. Was it levy budget money or was it undesignated fund balance? My reading of all these indicated come from the undesignated fund balance. Or it was appropriate, correct?
Yes,
So we're not dealing with replacing levy money. We're dealing with replacing surplus funds that the county used to put those amounts into the budget.
yes, both the,
Basically replacing undesignated funds.
exactly, yes, both the resolution and the two budget amendments specifically said undesignated fund balance.
An important issue.
Yeah.
Since it's already a budgeted expense. Why are you taking it out of the ARPA money? We already approved it to spend it. It's in the county budget, on this, designated fund.
And then part of the CIP plan as well. And in some cases, it's not the generated. That's part of the CIP plan already. Okay, what we're doing, and we're ending up short cycles.
Well, Yep.
Why?
Well, no, we're not exactly doing that. First of all,
Budgeted.
you know, two were amendments in the budget, so they weren't there in the original expense. I guess if that makes sense. And as far as capital projects that are long-term, that I think increase our resiliency, I think these really fit the mold. That being said, the board was a project that we did not decide to backfill because that was something that we had planned to spend down our fund balance with.
So that's how much is in the undesignated fund account approximately?
We started at 40 million. I don't know where we are now. Are we down to 20?
I want to say 28, but I can't quote a source for that.
So I just don't understand why you take under $32 million bucket, or $48 million bucket, what is the $32 million bucket to repair $48 million bucket? That's how it goes.
It's a pretty big red flags in our budget this year. We want to smooth it out.
It's already budgeted.
Sure.
Although, I mean, the item that's on the table right now is number 4, so I just want to address that, the $175,000. At the time that was approved by the board specifically discussed the fact that we'd eventually take it out of the ARPA funds or the fund created through the use of ARPA funds. So my understanding is that was the board's intent in October when they passed that. Maybe a different issue regarding the budget amendment items.
Was that in the resolution in front of the board when it was passed? That it was going to be taken out of the ARPA funds?
Yes, I'm looking for the language, but I believe it was. Okay, the second whereas clause does quote that language from the original resolution in October. It said that funds allocated for these purposes from the undesignated general fund may be later replaced by resources made available through designated uses of ARPA funds. So that's a quote from the resolution passed by the board in October. 110, yes.
So it's really out of our hands.
Hold on, one more question. We don't have a spirit fund yet. So we can't transfer anything from the spirit or to the spirit fund until January 21st.
I think that would be the intention, that all these projects come to that board meeting afterwards, correct, Mike?
Yes.
And then if it would not be approved, all should be rediscussed I think the president.
I would guess, hopefully we can do that as a consent agenda, and just change the wording.
Mike, what was that resolution regarding, it was regarding the emergency generator?
No,
It's for 175 grand.
The strategic planning.
I don't know. I'm looking for the other two resolutions.
Any other discussion on 175? No discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Passes. Number 5, discussion of possible action regarding resolution authorizing transfer of $300,000 from the Spirit Fund to the general fund for the purpose of funding budget expenses in the facilities department for a countywide building condition assessment study. Make a motion. I'll make that motion. All right, and second? I'll second. Okay, any discussion?
Was there a similar amendment to the board resolution? That said it was contemplated coming out of school fund.
well, that was the budget amendment at the budget hearing of the county board. So it did not have that language in it.
Was it an amendment to the budget?
It was an amendment to the executive budget approved by the board at the budget meeting. I have it listed as amendment number 1, but you know, it's on the normal amendment form, so it doesn't contain any of that kind of language.
Morris, first amendment.
What the first one, correct? To take the money from spirit fund or ARPA.
That was what was discussed.
Yeah, the discussion on this. When we take money like from these, is budgeted. Say like this 300,000 is gonna go out now, or this 800 and some other, this. Where will that money go? Is it right back in general fund, or will they be able to use it for something else? Because it's already given to them. So it seems like we have a tendency to do that with appropriated money. But then it goes some other place because we didn't use it all. And I'm just wondering about that, if it can be used some other place now, because these are already in the budget, if it was pulled out of there, then we use it in the other place.
To go, people will go back to the
It won't-
general fund, which cannot be appropriated.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
Well, no, it won't be.
Yeah.
This isn't a capital project, so the budget amendment actually added $300,000 in spending authority to the Facilities and Property Management Department, object 55014, which is professional services. So they're still limited. The budget limitation, though, is the budget control is on other operating expense. So it's just the normal budget limitations that would apply to that money as part of the finance department's. I'm sorry, as part of the facilities department's budget as it currently exists. So this resolution wouldn't change that budget. It only, instead of letting it decrease the undesignated general fund, it would move some of the spirit fund to the undesignated general fund to essentially pay for it rather than taking it out of the fund.
But I'm saying, so can they, we'll just say facility because there's the one mentioned, will that money be there now, so we're gonna go ahead and do some property some other place now or whatever? Because that money's been appropriated to facilities. That's happening.
That's basically true, and it's true whether this resolution passes or not.
Right, but I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
So they know that this money's been sitting out there and can be used for some other place.
So facilities can use it for any other other operating expense according to our budget rules.
Yeah. Say it out loud.
Please do. Would there be a way for the board to pull that 300,000 back if this was approved?
You shouldn't.
They can't, then they won't be able to spend it. If this is approved, then
It's being approved and it's being spent twice.
That's
No.
right.
this resolution wouldn't add anything to their budget. It's already in their budget.
Already, it's saying that the budget. The current budget for 23 is involving $300,000 spend that you can go ahead and do. With. And now we're saying, okay, now we're gonna replace with a tranche of spirit.
Right, so the board already put that money in the facilities department's budget. That's already done. It was the action taken by the board early November. So this just says we're gonna take it out of this pot of money rather than that pot of money, but the spending authority is the same either way, is not increased or decreased by this resolution.
But that 300 is not left in there any place out of a facility. There's no place that's been sitting and saying, well, we've got this extra money now, we can go ahead and spend it on this.
No, the actual spending is of course subject to, the normal controls internally we have, including, the county executive. And it's also, if it's not spent, it falls back to the general fund and can't be spent for anything else next year.
Down, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Grab this 300,000 out of someplace and build another office.
I guess the question is,
You could build an office that would be,
is by passing this facilities, is not getting $600,000 to build.
absolutely not.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay.
I'm sorry again, who made that motion? I'm not. And second,
I made the motion, Tom seconded.
thank you.
All right, discussion of possible action regarding resolution authorized transfer of $802,016 from the Spirit Fund General Fund for the purpose of funding the budget expense facility department for purchase and installation of emergency generator and related upgrades and equipment for the Center Expo Center.
Just gonna ask the same question, exact same thing.
Yeah.
Understood in 10 minutes that this 800 and some thousand can be taken out of facilities now, or stay in facility, plus we'll have another 853.16 to spend because we're taking that out of proposed spirit fund, if that's what it ends up being called. But they're gonna sit in facilities so that they can actually double money in that case. I'm just same question as like one that clarify.
Well, the same answer, except that this would be in the capital account, capital outlay account. So there's a little bit actually more budgetary control over that than a general operating expense. But it just absolutely does not increase the spending authority they have. It would stay at the 853,000 currently in the budget. This would not double that or add anything to it.
But the capital account budget already is reduced by 853,000.
No, the capital budget
853,000.
was increased in the budget amendment by 853,000 to allow for the spending on the generator. So they'll still have that authority to spend that same 853.
With approvals.
They have that right now, subject to internal controls. And they can't spend it for anything other than a capital project because it's in the capital budget, is what I'm saying. But this resolution will not increase the amount they can spend. Doesn't give them a second
Right,
853.
I guess my question though is, I know that they can't increase it.
Mhm.
Where is the 853.16 sitting for? Put back in the general fund because you're taking it out of the facilities budget. And now you're pulling it out of spirit. I mean, are they gonna end up?
Yeah.
But can they go ahead and do something else out of it?
No, for a capital project, if they use it for a different project, it at least has to come to PNF for information and has to go to the jurisdictional committee for a vote. So there's more control of capital projects.
There that's been approved, so PNF, then go ahead and approve it.
Well, that's the case.
Paul Eisen came up with an amendment on a resolution. He came up with an amendment to go ahead and fund this through the ARPA fund. Doing it direct without saying, well, we're going to fund the general fund, refund the general. It doesn't make sense in what we're saying. Jim.
My point.
Right. It's already out there. The money is already been approved on something.
Capital outlay usually bond.
No, capital outlays are in the budget and are usually based in tax levy.
Supervisor Carney?
Thank you. This resolution coincides with the action last month by this commission identified as number 5 in the minutes. Is that correct? That clearly states that it is going to go, and once again, I raise the objection that this is included by resolution, and what was passed for the town is not included. No, it was. However, dealing with just this one, it clearly states that it's supposed to go from the ARPA funds to the project. That's how I. So what you're doing is you're putting it into a department budget and letting them appropriate the funds for the project. And that's a concern, correct?
Yes.
So why would we have to do that? Why do we got to run it through a department?
It's already in a department because of the board action in the budget. So the commission obviously can't change that. The board made a budget amendment.
As Mr. Cox indicated, what is Mr. Eisen's motion to take it directly from the ARPA funds for purchase the generator?
I have the motion that was passed by the county board, the amendment number 13, and it doesn't say anything about the ARPA funds.
Okay.
Send you, and that in goes through. So.
Under part.
Right.
My only concern is, it's already budgeted as we expect coming out of the department. We're giving them the money back from the ARPA money, which could go somewhere else. I'm fine with the project, is what's gonna happen. Just the, why change the budget around? Let the county board on the time.
Yeah. That's just, if I might ask one more question, John, we're sticking this money all back into the undesignated fund balance, which is at one point was 40 million. So if this is all approved and stick them back in there, you're building up that fund balance substantially. For what purpose?
I guess the question would be hopefully not, because we budgeted a $2.6 million expense on the.
We have a lot of projects going on. That fund balance is
Right.
not going up. I mean, we
passed the budget with $2.6 million deficit
I expect we will be both, no.
on the general fund. How much general fund were you to be applied?
You're talking about buying down the levy, correct?
Correct.
Money we used to buy the levy down.
I don't remember for sure. I want to say 3.5, but I'm not at all sure. But then there's the money we didn't borrow for capital projects that were approved last year. There's the fact that we put the borrowing we did do on an accelerated scale. So we're paying another 4 million there. Then we have 2.5 million for those other 2 projects that we didn't do on borrowing. And so unless our financial performance in 2022 is a lot better than I'm thinking it'll turn out to be, I think our fund balance will be within the target range established by the county board policy of is it 15 to 20% of operating expenses. It becomes higher than that, but
You'll put money back into it here. Or anticipated additional projects.
well, that's been working under the assumption these things will go back into the fund balance, because we always have that in the outline. And if you look at that outline, this project was in it as coming from the ARPA funds. So I think that's always been kind of the assumption, but it's of course
I think there's
the board's
some
decision.
to The comment that was made
Mhm.
that, using ARPA funds to resupply people money and they fund balance. Got some concerns, that's why I'm raising the question. Because I'm of the opinion that having $40 million of the people's money to operate the county is simply overtaxing. Period. And that needs to be refrained from in the future. Continuing to put this money back into that same fund balance that I'm concerned about raises that level of fund balance and increases my concern. So, do you have a total of how much you're going to transfer here? If these all get approved back into that fund balance?
It's just these two.
I didn't have
Would be, 13.25.
million
No.
back into that general fund.
No.
So I think it's going to come out a couple of $10 maybe.
We only approved 475,000 so far. This amount would make it, about 1.3 million. Then there's some other items that are in the cap. I mean, the next items on the budget for today are items that were submitted as capital improvement projects, but with the thought that they could be funded by ARPA. And we have $10 million in other capital improvement projects to consider funding for, besides these. So we want decision on that. That's the reason they were put on the agenda for today.
All right, okay.
Can you tell about how many capital improvements they are going to do this year? Dollar wise or anything?
We have, I should let Paul answer, but I believe there are about $12 million worth of requests, not counting the ones that we have on the agenda here. And we normally try to limit that to 10.
The focus here then is to fund those projects without bonding.
Correct.
Keep that mill rate or levy low.
Correct.
Well, we'll definitely look at the fund balance again before we bond for the projects for
I
2023.
certainly support that, but the question is now on the table that has been submitted is it better to return that money to the people of this county through ARPA? What term do you want to use? Approved projects or building up our fund balance to buy down the bonding in the future? I don't know if I can answer. Both sides. Yeah.
I think for me, the importance was that this project gets funded one way or the other, but it's already been funded. I will not have heartburn if we decide not to fund this through ARPA. And it's in the budget. And might make CIP or future decisions a little bit harder. But for me, I'm satisfied that this is something we need to be done. And whether it's through this function or not, I'd sure rather just use the money that we have than bond for the things. Mike, can you confirm with that, or was this approved in the budget? Is this already somewhere? This is not something you would have to bond for. This is passed.
It was approved in the budget to be taken from undesignated fund balance.
My only thing with this, and I can understand where you're all coming from, but ARPA is, you're supposed to go ahead with what it was designed for. It started out when we got the influenza and that. So we got these monies in that to take care of these kind of things, and that's what this money was actually needed for. Like we got part we would have to be moved over there, so there's something with all of me, and that's why I won't say what part, but that's why I thought before that this kind of money should be put in there. Is the exact kind of spot that this money should be put in.
Yeah, just second on that, I agree. I mean, the idea was this to increase resiliency through the community. And you know, the Sunnyview spot is where we will continue government, if anything happens for this building. If there is a, storm on the first of November on an even year, we still have to carry out an election. That election will be carried out through our clerk's office, which will now be operating in that. So I think this does definitely live in that spirit of increasing the resiliency of the county. So, I'm gonna support this. I'm just not gonna be heartburned if it fails.
But I think obviously it's right for placement. Either way we do it. I hope we totally understand what's going on. Focus.
Any questions on the project itself? Any other further discussion?
Everybody agree that it's being, or it's already been funded. All right, the undesignated balance. We were looking for a way to get ARPA. Undesignated balance. I'm saying we don't need a washing machine. In the balance. We don't need to move back and forth. To make it a spirit. Instead of.
I remember what ARPA was.
Right. If you're going to do something like that, then you've got to take it out of the dollars that are in, take those dollars out of it. And truly spend ARPA money on it. Let's not get carried away with going, like what you had on the agenda. So you're taking from the general fund and you're putting back into the general. So just since it's gonna raise the eyebrows and on the local voice. To go this way. And press the button.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Do we have a motion on that?
I don't know that we did.
Can I get a motion for that? We went straight to discussion, didn't we? All right, you're voting. All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the $853,015 comes out of the spirit fund when it's available.
Second?
Is that Tim or Andy?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
What was the,
62?
so
2 days.
who was the other name? I'm sorry.
Discussion and moving on to the next action item here. Discussion and possible action regarding resolution authorizing for capital improvement projects to provide rapid intervention vehicle for the airport to be funded by a transfer of $300,000 from the spirit.
I will approve. I'll second.
Who makes this? Just what we buy from here?
We do have airport directors here.
Got a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Tim Shell, Report Director. I gave a informational memo around the hard copy of informational memo, just a little bit more detail on what I'm at. Essentially a small fire truck that is specialized for traffic. There is a second page to that memo. It's got 4 pictures of our existing fire truck, the 1999 F550 Ford chassis that has been outfitted with specialized firefighting equipment on it. So a little bit of background on what a RIV is. Again, it is a standard aircraft rescue firefighting vehicle, a smaller version of the larger trucks that Oshkosh Corporation makes. The 50 gallon Strikers, if you're familiar with those. The aircraft rescue firefighting trucks. We actually have 2 Oshkosh Corporation 1500 gallon trucks, which is the larger type. But this is actually the one smaller vehicle that we do have, providing fires or life safety events, or traffic accidents. Ribs are smaller, more maneuverable than those 1500-gallon trucks, so they can get out to the scene quickly, which is the rapid intervention results. They're also lighter, so they can get in some areas that big trucks may not be able to get into, mud or snow or what have you. And it's intended to be the first response vehicle on the scene. They're really designed for fighting smaller aircraft fires, smaller aircraft accidents, which is the majority of the operations that we have at the airport, smaller piston, light twin type of aircraft that operate. And so it's utilized year round for all of our operations for fire and life safety, and especially during the adventure event business. That's the existing vehicle is a 1999 model. We imported it in 2014 from the airport of Texas, so it's used. We acquired about $80,000 used. Some of the drawbacks of it is it's only rear-wheel drive, so two-wheel drive firefighting vehicle, which muddy or if it's heavy snow, really actually renders it somewhat unusable in certain situations. Thankfully, we've never had that. My knowledge, I've had that in this cabin where we've gotten stuck on the way to an aircraft accident response, but that's certainly one of its drawbacks. And one of the things with that, the vehicle that we have currently, is it's going on 22 years old. It's the only one of its type that we have on the airport for fire station. It's becoming an increasingly difficult time for possibly. So for those reasons, the request is before you replace our 1999 RIV with either a new vehicle or a used vehicle we're looking at for options right now in the market. To answer your question, Oshkosh Corporation does manufacture what they call a Stinger, which is their version of the RIV. We've talked to them recently. They're not taking orders on them right now because I think they're really chassis that we use for them. Not that they may start taking orders on again next year. They'd be out to 2025. So there are many other products there. Rosenbauer is another big manufacturer, and then there's it's really an F-550 outfitted to be a part of the vehicle, which specializes for accidents. We've used it quite a lot in responses. I don't know how many times it's sprayed home over the years. Yeah, we don't hear. It's bad word anymore. It's required to just
Ignore that question.
but it's a number of times. I mean, anytime there's an accident, we will. So it's used. Well, we average about 7 accidents during the venture week. They're usually not venture, they all been very minor. But we're there regardless. So if that's, even injuries and whatnot, or cracked fuel tank for a fire, we're there. Just
Yeah. A couple of questions. What do you intend to do with the one you own now when you purchase the home?
Jason, I'll speak to this, but I believe that we put it on a surplus auction.
I was going to suggest maybe you want to keep.
I'm not sure there would be much of a benefit if we had one to replace it. Like Jim said, the age of it, it's all operated by compressed air, and those fittings are, we had to go through a lot of repair to upgrade this one just to be usable. Okay. Whereas the firefighters aren't, trying to build the tanks every twice a week. I think they said before all these repair stuff. And so to hold on to it and then keep repairing it, I think would be not very wise with our money. Yeah, we would probably end up solving.
Second question is, you want $300,000, but you haven't determined which one you're going to buy.
We've gotten quotes on some of the private manufacturers right now.
You know, for from Oshkosh.
Sure. So I was in contact with Oshkosh Corporation yesterday. Like Jim said, they're not taking any orders or giving any quotes due to chassis availability. He thought that maybe a ballpark estimate would be around 600,000 for their item. Whereas if you went with another manufacturer or let's say another company who takes a chassis and upfits to whatever our specific needs are, that is where we're finding the price somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000. But with inflation rapidly rising, data cost gets away from us quick, you know, the longer we wait.
Next question is for the executive. What's the option there? Because it sounds like 300 grand might not cover this. It will initially maybe get them going, but how do we fund the balance of it if it don't?
I think from what I'm getting at some of the questions here, if it was the will of this commission to recommend that we amend this to even $600,000 to make sure that we could get an Oshkosh Corp vehicle, buy local. Then my only question would be the airport, can we wait that long? And that's up to the will of this commission. Well, we can recommend whatever we want. Mike, am I correct in that? We can adjust a number here if needed?
You can adjust it now, or it can be adjusted by the county board because it has to go to board, but after that, it would have to go back to board if more money were needed.
So that's the extra 800,000 in our. You guys really started.
Supplement.
They wait till 25.
That's the question.
Yeah, that's the question.
We can keep living it along until 2025, here, that's what we've been doing for the last few years. It was a used fire truck from, I think, believe it's DFW down Dallas. And we've had it for 8 years, it's a 23-year-old truck. So could wait, sure, it's something that would just cost more than anything. It's, you know, it's one of those things where we put, originally when we started looking at this like 3 years ago, we put $250,000 in. And now we've bumped it up to 300,000, and now in the last 12 months, even the prices are starting to hear from, which isn't taking orders at the moment, are getting kind of crazy. So we're trying to be judicious with the funding that's available and say, hey, if we can find vehicle, and there's actually a number of other ones out there that I would manufacturers that can, you know, meet our needs for half the cost. I understand the want to buy local, but
So 350 do it?
I believe we could make that amount work. It wouldn't be an Oshkosh corporation unless you could find a used vehicle, which I haven't seen much out there on the market. You would have to go through a private dealer, and then they would have to try to source something like that to, you know, see if anybody's willing to put the variable.
Supervisor Perry, then we'll be commission to make a decision.
I would disagree. I would support local, limit. Obviously, we want to use one from Texas. Obviously, we've had to put a lot of money into it to keep it going. So I think the next one we should buy to fit our needs without continued operational costs to keep it going. So that would be my focus. If that means 600 grand or whatever that number is, I would have a tendency to support that because it gives this county better long-term commitment. That's mine.
Do you have a preference over, because I would, refer to you, I would say public safety superseding buying local, so if you're saying there's going to be 3 years from now before we go, do you have a preference that you would buy new from somewhere else? Is that just as hard to save because of that?
I think that's part of the reason we're bringing this forward now for the ARPA commission, is that we take this camp for a while now already. And to say, you know, we just are going to rely on trying to get it in 2024, 2025, on the regular CIP process. It is a need now, and public safety wise, it would, and given the drawbacks of the current vehicle in fighting a fire on unstable terrain, you know, aircraft don't crash regularly. Unfortunately, I can't say the word, but they don't, and that's why these vehicles are made to be the off-road vehicles. The Oshkosh Strikers, the big fire trucks and the small fire trucks. Now, I think it's every bit, my knowledge on Jason or Cam, it's every bit as usable of a product coming from other manufacturers. And just saying, well, we have one. Again, they're in the $500,000 to $600,000 range new. We've seen others that are the specs really good on them, $300,000 range. And we could, Jason mentioned, we could find, you know, a 5 to 10-year-old Oshkosh Stinger out there that we've been that an airport is looking to get rid of and upgrade, and we may find that for that.
Jason, if you had If this is your choice to make, what would you buy? Just the boss, that's all. I think we should ask the guys that work on the vehicles. I'm saying that's what we're gonna go.
You know, I would love to see an Oshkosh vehicle at the Oshkosh Airport, but with that, you know, they cater more to, commercial airports that have an extreme amount of traffic, that have a budget that can afford that, so. They did give us a reference down to a place in Texas with four-wheel drive, but I haven't gotten any calls back from them yet. But it looks like a stout vehicle, but I have no idea what it costs.
How many bids? How many bids?
We've gotten one quote back in the very short period of time that we've had to get this ready, and it was $310,000 from a company in Kansas, I believe. And that was, can you give us a quote quickly? And it didn't have specifics, and it didn't have radios and things that we would need to outfit it after the fact, or yellow paint that's required on an airport. So there are shortfalls even with that cost.
Have you gone to? Here's. To FWD. To.
There are specific dealers that deal just with airport vehicles, firefighting vehicles. We have one that comes up from Milwaukee, I believe it is, that augments our force during EAA. And they have a rib that's very nice. Where they get theirs from, everybody kind of just picks a dealer and whoever can give them the best price, really. So it'll be a matter of finding a company that's willing to build what we need, and then finding another company, and then trying to find the best price.
Do we know if Oshkosh builds these in Oshkosh, or are they from one of those satellite facilities?
For their model, the Stinger, I'm not sure where they built it at. Yeah, and Nina, yeah.
I don't know, larger. I'm not sure.
Let me ask Jim one more question. You think the urgency needs to be on the truck we can get first, not necessarily the brand, correct?
You know, the ARPA is a federal act. So, you know, if we're doing this with FAA dollars, we wouldn't be able to just say we're going about. So I don't know. But have the mechanism to bring it into the county general funds, how that works, but that's not what I'm used to. So federal, like FAA grants, we could say, we stack it up, say, okay, or similar, but you know, it has to meet a certain level of specification. But that doesn't mean we can just say, okay, well, Oshkosh vehicles, $200,000 more, this other vehicle, same thing. Yeah, we want Oshkosh.
Mr. Chairman, I would tend to agree with Supervisor Fari, understanding that sentiment. I guess we know these are federal tax dollars. I would hate to see a vehicle that isn't made in this country by, American taxpayers. So, like I said, I would feel more comfortable if you knew that that's great that the vehicle was made in Texas, so that actually made in Texas. So I guess just agreeing with some of Supervisor Fari's sentiment.
Any amendment that somebody like your told?
I made the motion, so the amendment would come from somebody else. Difficulty is to amend it without finding the definitive cost.
We could always come back, correct?
Yeah, I think we can.
Revisit this. And let's say if he gets a quote and it's higher.
Well, sure, if it goes to the county board and the board approves a specific amount, then an increase would have to go back to board as well. But that certainly can be done.
I see no reason to really adjust this right now. To the board. Normally, because that's how you get your bids out.
I'll make amendments to go from 300,000 to 600,000
I'll second
and
that.
looking at the aspects.
Any discussion of the amendment? All right, all those in favor of the amendment to go from 300,000 to 600,000, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right. Any other discussion on, the motion itself? All right, all those in favor of, setting this to the board as a recommendation at 600,000, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. All right, that is passed.
Observation.
Sure.
Snowplow trucks, fire trucks and everything else. It sounds like we're in not the fastest people to get things done. And there might be a used one that he says, hey, I can pick this one up, but I need to fill by tomorrow night. Are you dealing with that issue?
We are trying, we're looking at highway, we only give them the issue. To purchase, how do we, me and the chairman actually had a discussion. We're interested to figure out a way in some of these places where it's hard, how do we grant appropriation to a date certain? The highways in.
And I think the answer is yes, we're working on it.
Yes.
That's all.
They come available, they're gone in there. All right, moving on to discussion item 8. All right, discussion of possible action regarding resolution authorizing a special capital improvements project to promote boat launch pay stations to be funded by a transfer of 300,000 from the Spirit. Can I get a motion to bring this discussion? I think so.
It is. It's 120 on the resolution. It's a typo on the agenda.
Oh. Can I get a motion? All right, the second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'd like to hear from them. People about this. In that I'm not a big fishing seconds, I have a report on.
I am Adam Greason, Director of Parks. Winnebago County. So we have 7 boat landings that we operate in Winnebago County. We have 1 on the Fox River in Eureka. We have 2 on Poygan, 1 on Yuma, 3 on Lake Winnebago. In
There's a map up the line.
the Eureka one is down here. Poygan is over here up in B. Another one here on the north side. We have 1 on Beautiful, right off Runner's Point over here. And then we have 1 up by Grumman Lane. 1 here by Silent, and down by Blackwell. That's the one that's there down here. Yep, Grumman, the town. And actually next year, Grumman, the one in town of Vinland is getting, there's a couple of projects that the board's approved for that the landing. And within that, all our landings have a steel cash box, so we're only pay the cash for daily fees. We've been looking to get those updated. We're gonna update the one at Grumman, and with that, if we're gonna update one, we want to look at updating all 7. So fishing, I mean, a lot of, or even any boaters, recreational boaters, they're not always going to the same landing. So obviously we want to keep our systems the same. So the idea would be if you've ever been to where the Parker, here in Nebraska, Brown County, Calumet County is working on it right now as well. But they have basically automatic pay stations that can accept credit card and so then that way there's multiple ways. Credit card model. Now we do have people that will put an envelope in the box and they seal the box, they rip off the tip or the front page, they put it in their dash and they leave us down wrappers or they send you. There's really no way to. So this we've heard from Brown County with the results is this is a way because obviously if there is a receipt on their dash, it's because they got that receipt. There's no receipt, well, then so it's a lot more black and white. It obviously provides a lot more convenience to the boat landing users. We do have a quote on this project. We've been working we're starting to work. We got a quote back in spring, but we updated that quote. The stations themselves are 100,000. And then that leaves us with 20,000 to work with the facilities department, for the electrical that needs to be run to them and pass the concrete pass. So I'd be happy to answer it.
Just a math question, how much, we collect enough money to pay for the extension?
So we collect about, like this year, we were roughly 120,000 in revenue. And our expenses, we were operating in a deficit about a year ago or 2 years ago before I started, and now we are about 14,000. So it makes it, we're working on getting that in the right direction.
Okay, that's less.
Yeah, and we should see more revenue because of the people that we're missing too.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we gonna be getting a deal since you're finding one for Drummond? And then, you know.
We do save on installation, we save on training. The one thing that we are waiting on is apparently so there was a state contract previously with this company. And with the DNR and a lot of communities popped on as well, so they already did the bidding process and kind of so as well and some of those for trucks and that kind of thing. Apparently they do have a new contract, it's just not signed yet. So they were hoping in January, February to have that signed, and so it's already kind of gone through the competitive bid process.
At the same time, if it's referring boat landing, if we approve this, that possibly that they could go around and get their boat landing at the same time.
Yeah, so the idea is I did confer with them because we lead time on equipment, so probably, depending on the industry. They did say if, so Grumman will start March 1st, and we're hoping to open back up by July. We go up for bids in January for Grumman, so we get a better feel then. They did say by July 4th, we'll follow 7 for weeks.
Video, video surveillance, part of this project.
Now, for this project, like the Grumman Grove landing is an example, we are planning for cameras there. And obviously we hope to slowly have more sort of their landings as we can. The problem is it's either cell cameras or we have to put server both cameras in the mindset server, which it helps after the fact, but obviously it's not like I can afford computer. And
You've got power to these ones, so you've got a power.
we have power, but data will be the issue, so we get all the way to that side.
Not over there. So. We'll be in amendment on the other for sure. Any other questions or discussion on this? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Put on number 9, discussion of possible action regarding resolution authorizing a capital improvement project to install a redundant fiber loop, creating a fiber pathway between county administration building and the sheriff's office, and appropriating expense in the amount of $755,000 to be refunded with $212,400 in outside funding and $542,600 to be transferred from the spirit. I'll move to approve. Wait a second. All right, second. All right, any discussion?
Question of Mike, Mr. Chairman. The outside funding is at a proposed amount or guaranteed amount.
Ask Patty to.
I'm Patty Frankfurt, Director of IT. That is a quoted amount for getting from fire station 18 to fire station.
From whom?
From the engineers. So phase 1 of this project was engineering capital project, and that was done this year. So it's from our engineering firm that we're working with.
Okay, so the 500 grand is actually a balance. Put it in, right?
The 212 was a partnership.
Schedule a meeting to sit down with you and discuss the topic. We can answer a lot of your questions ahead of time and be able to investigate and find the answers we may not.
So in other words, Oshkosh is contributing.
Correct. What, I spoke with the director there knowing, because he had previously asked me about getting fiber from the sheriff's office to the fire station on Canal. So I knew it was something they wanted. So when we were working on this project, I spoke with them and they're very interested in going all the way. So that would be shared construction. They'll have their own fiber, but we'll share the construction all the way.
Thank you.
Any of the, sorry, President Buckman's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be supporting this, and I guess my question is maybe for you, John, or maybe for Mike. ARPA, you know, in the part of the problem we had during the pandemic was access to reliable internet. Is this the only problem or project that you see coming forward with fiber optic and access to the internet, or will we be discussing, or you guys have other projects in the hopper around this?
To answer that, there is a portion there that has broadband, and I think that we should look at that money multiple ways, depending on how Starlink comes along. A lot of the more rural areas in our county, that might be the answer versus running fiber, and there'll be plenty of money through plenty of other grants out there. I think a lot of them address broadband. So yeah, this is just to make us more resilient as a county, make sure that we have redundancy. We do have the intention to help spread some of that in areas where we don't have it.
Patty, Peter's hot, all their handles about, partners with us and they stand in their lane. Or do they get their own tickets to locate, or do we do locating and do we do that?
That's a good question. It'll probably be registered under us. And we can share, we already have an arrangement throughout the whole entire county, from the bottom to the top of the county with other municipalities with that. When you have a joint location, if you both register, then you're both paying the full amount. So we can, it's not something we do with the rest of the entire county. It's been broken out to where people cover the bigger lot lines. And we have agreements in place with all the way through geographically through the county. It's not an easy thing to look at every ticket and say, okay, this ticket was on this street and there's 2 people using the fiber there. And we're gonna let 50% each. So we will have to come up with something that
Or do we do, well, you're on record, so if there's any liabilities, it should be reimbursed some of the. Second of all, this fiber optic thing that she's into is really a moneymaker for Tony. Do you have any numbers of what it would cost if you had to lease a line from AT&T or Time Warner at all?
Yeah, and I talked with AT&T and Spectrum for a couple examples, and both were right around $8,000 a month for the same capacity we'll get for our own fiber. So yeah, it might be 5 or 6 years before payback on this, but then when we own it, we're done, and otherwise we're paying $8,000 a month.
Then there's a run that runs from Oshkosh north or the national.
Right, we go the northernmost point of UW Fox or UW Fox, Oshkosh Fox City.
What happens is you've got a single line going up there, so you don't have any redundancy. That line has been in there now for, so it'd probably be in our best interest to put a second line in that is not close to that line, so that we have duplication of facilities. If that goes down, it doesn't. You've got a plan for that.
Yeah, well, this project is to go from between our 2 most critical data centers and that has the most equipment, which is here and share office. And that we will pick up, so we won't get the northern buildings yet on a redundant loop. That would be a much higher number to go all the way up to the north end.
I know about it, I'm looking at it when
Yeah.
time comes.
Yeah.
But just to get to this committee, this is good stuff. This is what we have to make. So. Any discussion?
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, moving on, a discussion of possible action regarding resolution authorizing a capital improvements project to purchase digital subscriber units, radios for all county departments, and appropriating expense in the amount of $2,560,000 to be funded with the transfer in that amount from the spirit fund. And motion on this. I'll move to a vote. Second. All right, any discussion?
Just a question on, since we knew they only were the last 11 years, and today is the 11th year, what was our plan? So when the amendment happened?
Capital improvement
I
bonding.
guess it was the body that.
Yeah.
There was, we got it and all that. Okay.
But it was in the capital improvement plan, I believe, for when we were going to bond.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, if you have questions, I can ask them too. So we just presented this as part of the capital improvement plan for the future earlier this month. Similarly situated, anticipating what pot of money will this be coming from, but as the county board has known that these have a 10-year lifespan, and just a quick history, we upgraded our radio system between 2011, 12, and 13. At the onset of a federal mandate to switch the type of radios that we used at the time in the county. When that happened, Winnebago County upgraded both the infrastructure as well as the actual radios that all of the entities, all the public safety entities in the entire county used. We purchased somewhere around 1,400 radios at that time and upgraded infrastructure to the tune of somewhere around $11 million in 2011. So since that time, we've been gradually upgrading infrastructure as pieces have gone obsolete or different technologies acquired. That was the point of having it actually replace radios. And we knew, like you said, we knew it was going to be a 10 to 12 year period when that was going to occur. This money became available when every fall, as part of the capital improvement project of the county, we tell the county what is on the horizon. That when we did this last year, 5-year plan, anticipating beginning in 2023, there was a dollar. And since that time, a year later, this project has already gone up $350,000. So we know that we have no idea what the future is going to hold. If it's 10% again, I get nothing on that, but we're hoping that it's funded as an entire project with the ARPA money. This would purchase radios, all the radios that county departments use. That includes the sheriff's office, the jail, the radios that emergency management uses, facilities, the highway shop, and all the snow plows and all the county roads, the DA's office, the medical examiner's office, and public health department. So we're going to be the facilitator and the coordinator for the entire project for all the departments, instead of each one having this individual project that just doesn't make sense. They're all purchased at the same time, roughly. We have to coordinate the installation and programming and disbursement of all the licenses and everything, so it just makes sense for us to do the entire project. Sure, go ahead.
Kind of a base, when we work on it, in other words, are you, kind of a fiber base, or do you microwave?
Both.
If
So
you have various microwave
yes, in fact,
stations all over.
that was, we have 4, Winnebago County owns 4, and that was a 2021 CIP project where we replaced all the microwaves on the 4 of those towers. It was about 350,000, I believe. And that was the last major infrastructure piece that we had to upgrade. And we are currently in a 30-year agreement as part of a shared core with Winnebago County. So it's kind of a configuration. Winnebago County has 7 microwaves that they replaced for more than 300,000 that we had for our board. So we've all upgraded at the same time, and we're part of these long-term agreements. We were just sort of a piece of that.
How long will these last?
The manufacturer says 7 years. So if you ask them, they'll tell you 7. Well, we say 10 seems reasonable, and we're at 12. So
Motorola still even a company anymore?
it is, oh yeah, they are getting this money. Yes, they are a company. They are absolutely a company.
They're on.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, and I'm certainly going to support this, but I do have a concern because we have coordination with these radios developed within the county on all emergency, i.e. fire departments, first responders, Florida County. And of course, they're going to be at a deficit with their radios, or maybe some. How will the new radios affect that communication with the towns in particular that have I'll use the term obsolete?
Sure. So what you are describing is what we addressed in 2011, 12,
Yes,
13.
everybody got,
Upgrading everything. So now all of those radios will work until they don't work. It's like a cell phone. So your cell phone from 10 years ago might very well make phone calls today. It's probably not going to make data and eventually. Yeah. Switches are going to be broken and they can't replace the buttons. That's kind of what's happening with the radios that we have now. The features aren't working, but the guts, how it transmits over the tower to tower, that still would function until the radio becomes a different pair, and then they exploding, or they throw it in the garbage, and then they have to buy a new one and replace it. We don't want that to happen with our public safety and entities. We don't want to piecemeal it. It's not prudent to do that. We know they have an end of life, and we're trying to be proactive.
so
Not
what you're
have that
saying
happen.
that the technology with the new radios will still communicate with
Yeah.
the old radio.
They will.
And you're talking about the physical condition. of the radio.
Exactly.
That would be.
Yeah, pushing the buttons and handling the components, they're not gonna last forever. They
So the
don't.
switch is not going to
No.
deter that communication at this point in time.
Correct. They, part of the narrow banding, federal narrow banding in 11, 12 is part of that. And then the other part is we bought a P25 compliance system, which is like a terminology that's used in the industry. We still have P25 radios. We still have P25 systems. We'll all talk to each other. Now there's other radios that are better than what we want. We're trying to replace similar with similar, like with like. We didn't look for an increase in a product. We didn't, we're not obviously not getting a decrease in the product either. We're replacing the current radio with the similar model that exists today. Some of the models that we own right now, all the fire department radios, those are completely obsolete. They can't even get parts for those anymore. The ones that we have today, we're replacing with like radios. And yeah, so we have 10 more years on a lot of our contracts, and 10 years from now, maybe nobody will have radios anymore. They might have cell phones. I don't know. I will not be here in 10 years, so I'm not sure how you will be, but I will be.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Do you know how many like fire departments would need to do all that radios also?
I don't know how many that are left that have to purchase them. Like City of Oshkosh did. City of Oshkosh Fire, Police, Neenah Police, Manassas Police, Neenah Fire. Those have all been purchased or in the process of being purchased already. So that leaves basically the towns and then, the Village of Fox Crossing, like with the Amiral County. So how many haven't purchased yet? I'm not telling you the deal, but I know when we talked to them back, it was like 1,400 minus 400 minus the cities. Rough guess, maybe 600 men.
Gentlemen,
Maybe. I don't think it's total.
I don't know, say totally, I know. Also, Fox Crossing, we have 39.
Fox Crossing Fire.
Fire.
Well, the fire department, they have 39, the PD probably has another 25. So then that's one department, so I have to.
There was a letter from Fire Chiefs Association to the commission in July that said that other than the ones that, like Oshkosh, that have already purchased and the county needs, the remaining fire departments would need about 800 radios, estimated cost $4,880,000.
That was a year-old estimate.
Yeah, that was before the.
Yeah, actually, it was probably 3 years. Any discussion?
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Is the biggest for last. Discussion and possible action regarding allocation of $3,030,300 in the Spirit Fund to use in land conservation projects. And before we get started on this, the one thing that I want to express to everybody, this is not a one-shot deal that we're going to spend $3 million today to address water. One of the reasons that we did what we did was to get that timeline extended. So this is an allocation we're going to discuss over a very long range time for us to actually improve water quality here. So with that, I'll look for a motion to get this on board. So, all right, one second. All right, and before we get discussion, Chad, you want to?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chad Casper, Director of Land and Water. And if I could, I know a while back you received kind of a proposal for the department. I'm just going to pass this around with a little more detail. And then if it's all right, I'll just talk through what the proposal is here for our department. So like the executives had mentioned, this is a more to longer range of goals for our department. Conservation doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, engaging with farmers, getting contractors hired to get these practices installed. So the approach is going to be like a 10-year approach, 10-year timeline, what we're thinking for the proposal. So I'll just walk through what I just handed out, and then if anybody has questions, just let me know. I broke this down based on the different practices. So what we call the practices in the department are called BMPs, or best management practices. And essentially what that is, it's a conservation practice that is used through our department to reduce runoff leaks like into surface water and groundwater. So starting off here, I'm kind of laid it out for the agricultural practices first. So the first one on the list here is harvestable buffers, the harvestable buffer program. This is a program we currently do not have, and what we really like about this, essentially what it is, strip vegetation along the water body. So it's going to filter any pollution coming off the landscape, sediment, pesticides, nutrients before it gets to the water body. What's nice about this is the farmer can harvest that buffer. We currently do not have that option, so it would be a great option for feed. So it's an easier sell for us when we meet with these landowners to get these practices installed. So we just estimated 50 acres over a 10-year contract at $200 and another 60-year. And that's what the soil health program. This is a really big push within our department right now. This is working with farmers to try and get away from the traditional way of farming. So the idea is to leave a living crop in the ground year round. So that would be working with farmers on cover crops and then no-till. So by having a living cover year round, not working that soil, keeps the soil in place, creates a healthier soil because that living matter creates more organic matter in the soil. You get better infiltration, so you have to stop with the flooding because the water will soak in better. Also great for pollinators and just great overall for water quality. So the rates that we're talking here, we're looking at 3,000 acres at $8.50 an acre for 3 years. It is a change in management, and this cost would be to work with the farmer, and so it's a big change for someone that's working the field up quite a bit to see in this different changes that we perform. Wetland developments and restoration and sediment control basins. We had identified 15 projects for $30,000 each. So these are areas where, for example, a farmer can only get in the field maybe once every 3 or 4 years. We'll work with them to restore back to a natural wetland that might be maybe a spray, grading berm, grading tiles, closing up ditches, but then restoring it back to the wetland. So the cost to cover the construction to do that, and these are amazing projects for flood storage, water quality, and waterway systems. That's a big one we work with. This is essentially, if you have a farmer that has gully happening to the field, We will work with them to size waterways, so we look at the drainage area, we size certain storm event. We seed it down so it stabilizes that gully. The watershed draining through that waterway helps filter all the sediment before it gets stored in place and stream. And that will be about 30,000 linear feet at 10 miles a foot. The next one would be barnyard, milk house, freeway, runoff control systems, and manure storage folders. So these funds would be used to work with farmers on if a barnyard is experiencing runoff coming out the barnyard, it's getting surface water, we work with them to put up the road gutters or filter strip to collect the manure and clean it before it gets to the water. The same would apply for milk house waste, and storage runoff as well. And then your manure storage closures, there's pits that are also that are idle. And if these pits sit idle with manure in them, it can pose a threat to groundwater. We want to remove that manure and redesign those pits to the top of the dam and seal the soil. So this comes in there. Sure, we don't have any capital. We do, we have 3 actually. We do. Yeah. And we got other entities, we kind of want that broad because we have a lot of tools in our toolbox for the different practices that we use. So I couldn't identify every single one. I tried to hit on the big ones here, but I wanted to do some home available for other things that we have. And if we flip the page, this is where we work on the lakes. So habitat for protection and restoration, a big practice that we do in land and water conservation are offshore break walls. I would say we're a leader in the state, if not in the region, for designing installing break wall projects on the lakes. And essentially what those are is rock that sticks on the water about 2 feet. And we place them adjacent to the eroding wetlands that are experiencing, some sites are losing 8 to 9 feet a year of wetlands. So we put them out in the water and that creates quiet water behind it. It breaks that wave, that vegetation behind it naturally starts growing. So it's not only creating more wetland and it's also restoring the wetlands that have been washed away. They're really cool projects. It not only benefits the landowners that are losing their shoreline, but everybody uses the lakes, right? So it's a tremendous resource for fisheries, for duck hunting, all those types of things. Doing these projects. The clarity behind these break walls is unbelievable. It's crystal clear water behind the rock, where it's that dirty, good water on the outside. So very unique practice. I had about 540,000 in that, or 4,000. Shoreline habitat restoration. This is working with lakeshore and stream bank owners on making a healthier shoreline. So a lot of shoreline owners will mow right to the edge. They'll apply fertilizers. This is putting in native plants and grasses. It's usually 20 feet to 35 feet wide. So that's going to have the deep roots of native plants that go down up to 15 feet. It's going to stabilize that vein. It's going to filter any roots before it gets to the water body. And it's amazing habitat for different critters. So I had 15 projects at $6,000 each for that. And then groundwater, well abandonments. It's a smaller practice that we do, but we work with landowners in the county to properly abandon their well. They put materials called bentonite in the well, and it seals the well and it protects it from that well. So we have a program for that. And these ones will supplement that. And rain gardens, those are also smaller projects that it collects the water off of a roof or say like a driveway. It's a shallow depression with native plants. So instead of the water running over your parking lots and driveway, it's going to go into the rain garden. It recharges the aquifer. That water clean and what we need. So this is how we came to the ask of the little over $3 million. I just want to point out that these numbers assume a 9% cost share rate. So the landowner would do 10% of the cost of the project, and 90% of the proposed here. And on the last page, I just wanted to point out a couple of other things that you can potentially use the funds for. Newer water treatment, reverse osmosis. I was on a farm in Manitowoc County where they actually treat the manure where it becomes the water so clean to feed back to the cows, and they have less that they have to haul. So all they have is solid product back. It's a lot less material. It's less that runs off. It's got square to on the roll. It's a really cool technology, but it is expensive. So that could be something you could consider. equipment for soil health initiatives to do something, a well testing program. But I wanted to point out that if this were approved, everything would go through my land conservation committee to set the policy and procedures that all these funds are spent. And disclosure, the numbers that I have here are based on the knowledge I had at the time, and the final install practices will vary based on annual participation. And then the building cost percent of the steer fund firm. As I mentioned earlier, this is a longer range vision. 10-year time frame what I was looking at for this. And then I just want to point out that if these funds were approved, I just wouldn't be going out and spending money wherever in the county. We have several management grants that were just approved in my department. One of them was approved, adopted by the county board. And that plan identified all the sub watersheds in the county, and then it prioritizes based on food volume, there's modeling done, and it shows the worst watershed down to the least worst. So our focus in our department is to focus on the worst watershed. We've been doing outreach. We're just getting started, but we're doing outreach with farmers, lake shore owners to get practices installed. And it's where we receive these funds that will get us in our goals. Start with the word and we'll go into the county. We also have a lake management plan that was approved in 2020 for the Winnebago system, which is an undertaking. That really focuses our efforts for our departments and goes into the shoreline scoring in our department where we identify erosion rates on the entire system. So my focus would be to focus on the four sites first in these funds, which is the biggest one. And then we're also doing a barnyard inventory, right now, and so we're identifying the first barnyards that we. You had mentioned cables, so I know that the ARPA funds were not eligible for funding. I don't know what this would be now, the steer funds, it's something we have to look into. But we have to be able to work on how to do operations that they operate. And then the last point I want to make is the primary focus of the Land and Water Conservation Department is to improve water quality in Winnebago County. So future generations will definitely benefit if the steer fund group invest in these legacy funds. These funds really at the end of the day is to keep the water control. It creates habitat, it creates opportunities. We have a tremendous resource right in the backyard system. That really has long, a long ways.
Thank you, great presentation here. Is $2.5 million enough? $3 million, okay. $3 million. And anyways, going to your second bullet point here about the no-till farming, just to trip over the western part of the state. Yeah, most of the farmers over there are doing no-till farming. They've been doing that for a long time. And I asked the farmers, why would the farmers continue, till up their fields? They said, well, because they have the problem, they have the equipment, so they're going to continue to do it. Is this $796,000 going to be used to buy farmers equipment? What is it going to be used for?
Part of it is renting equipment. That is a big thing we're working with. We are currently developing a list for farmers to get the equipment to use. Allegheny County actually has, they have a whole building house with soil health equipment that they purchased. I don't know if I want to go there. It's a lot of people that are dedicated just to the equipment. I want to get in that world, but we can use it. We'll have the counties purchased a couple of pieces of equipment as well. We have drones that have been seeded in the cover crops. We have drone flyers that can cover crops. So we're looking to develop resources for the farmers. For that, it is something that we need to build on because the implement dealers, it's just not readily available.
So education, buying equipment. So taxpayers are going to buy equipment for the farmers, not to sell their property.
It's to buy the management change. I guess that's the way to look at it. Hopefully, educate them to see the benefits with time of switching over and you're buying it. Yeah, that's the idea.
I get the process simple. And then to manage water quality, I guess, how about prevent flooding, right? That's some jurisdiction of the committee, correct? Mitigate flooding risk, and why I ask is that in my district out off of Clareville and E, we've had continual problems of flooding out there. I'm sure you're aware of it. I do quite the calls about that, and so one of the solutions for some drain tile and our farmers feel that could these funds be used for a project like that.
For drain tile.
Mm-hmm.
That is not cost of drain tile. We've seen that actually can get the water faster. Instead of slowing it down.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to the flooding, a lot of these practices are going to help with flooding. Everything from the wetland restorations to rain gardens collectively to the non-consumers can help. Soil health would be a big one. You start to get that management change. That water soaks in and stays more on the fields and washing off because it's all the soil.
Sure.
That would be a big
I
one.
get that, yeah. What's happening is folks facing are flooding in that area. Just looking to provide a little clarity to some of my decisions.
I don't like you guys really.
What he's talking about, or don't you help with like cleaning up ditchways and that, like a farm ditchway?
Not necessarily a farm ditch, but the water ways we work in, so water gets full, we less going the sediment, what happens a lot is instead of washing and boiling, we'll regrade it to. And we look at the drainage area and then there's the size of the full.
Comment if I might, when we all got started into this ARPA funding issue and all that, John and I had a discussion, and one of the words he used was he was looking for funding projects that provide a legacy to the county. These projects that have been very well defined and described by the director would provide perhaps the longest lasting legacy that we could find. I mean, you're looking at improving projects on the land that'll last generations. So I would ask you to consider that as we move forward. These $30 million of money, but over a lot of years. So just bear in mind that once these practices are put in place, they're there for really cleaning our water, providing less funding. And the big focus is Lake Winnebago is a fair lake. So all of this is kind of focused in the getting that lake improved with the water quality. Just 2 points.
We did. 10 years ago, because
Yeah, I like to think we are. The one good thing that's happening is we're starting to get more monitoring up and going with one of a lot of these programs. We'll be able to have more science behind it. But we're getting there. Some of the practices back in the day, we really did a lot of high residue management, and some of the bigger farms did a lot more silage off now, so it's opened up the soils more. So this is where some of the practices are talking about. So,
there's no point something like that. Shake down the door.
I recently got a watershed specialist approved in the department last year. So that's, he's working a lot on soil health initiatives. As of right now, I wasn't planning to because it's looking more long term. This was something I had to expect in 2 years. I'd be stressed out, thinking we need a bunch more staff. But I think if we're talking 10+ years, we'll be able to manage it.
The 10% copay, is that sort of a industry standard amongst your type of work, or if you want to 20 or 30% copay, is then sort of is more clients, more pictures, more ways,
That's a good point. So the standard in our industry is 70% cost share with the landowner. And so the reason we did 90 was to try and get more money. And if we are hard south, a lot of this is voluntary, so we're trying to make it a little more.
Any questions? All right. Questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
You know, when he tells me it's gonna take 10 years and we're not trying not using it all at once. And now we're gonna have people coming to us. We could probably use it now. Can we end up taking that 3 million and setting it aside and not using it to help the people that we could use now? How are we gonna look at that as this committee? How are we gonna take and apply these things? Because there's a now need and we've got 10 years, and I think the whole thing will allow that. But how much are you gonna put? We're buying a project. We're setting aside the money for the project. Buy something, it's an airplane, big for it, until it's not big for it. Big for it. If you buy something like this, which is a project that is in scope. Whatever the bill, over the bill in scope. You're paying for the entire thing that you have to do. I certainly we earmark that money. So it doesn't get used anywhere. They in the project. Yeah, you're right. So my thing is, if he doesn't have his participation, he's thinking out the first year, the second year, third year. That's not a hard business. He knows he's gonna go out and have to do it. Where our business is the money. We check, we have done a better job in giving somebody else more money, and if it's that good, why do we come up and budget? If you do a 5-year grant instead of a 10-year grant, you can hold it out and put it around. Well, so putting it in the bank, sitting on it, and not doing it. It's just a mind thought process that I have, but I don't know it's shared by everybody. That entire plan, if it's a 5-year plan, you have to give it the stretch of 5 years. If it's a 10-year plan, you give it the stretch of 10 years. The dollar amount that you put in, you don't divide it over that period of time. In my mind, what I see happening here is we've got dollars we're gonna have. And all of a sudden, we'll start keeping dollars out of what's available. Subtract. And then you're gonna get to the point where now you have options. You've got the 3 million sitting there, which is good. But you may want to take a little bit of that, because I think the executive said is that, it's close. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's close. So I know I just asked this committee to, sir, I think it's good, yeah. But is there a better way we can do it? Again, you gotta trust the system and trust that you're able to keep track of what's going on. And I agree with you that you don't take and pre-sell it, but that's what we have things to do, and you're supposed to experience everything else, taking that money and be out on its own. I can see where you'd like to do it, but I'm just saying this page is something that you should look at.
The question is, to follow my field, is there a way to set this up in a fund that's in the end of the water to be very specific and know the drawdown, which is and how would you set it up? I guess is the question.
We'll probably have to discuss it amongst ourselves and with Corp Counsel and possibly the auditor, but I would be thinking in terms of setting up a separate allocated fund balance, either in a special revenue fund or a general fund.
All right, setting up the next meeting date. If I'm right,
A question, so. We're approving stuff and we're coming back and bringing it forward by resolution, right? So at the next meeting, are we gonna have a resolution to approve the remaining $300,000?
And then so from the corporation council, we'll make sure that it's in yeah, whatever your intent was, we'll make sure the resolution passes your.
Okay, and then is that also with the money, the funding for municipality? Cleared that up?
That I don't think you've cleared up yet. We won't talk to you about that. Correct? I don't think we will do that.
I've consulted with Mary Ann. She said if we did that, it would violate the open meetings law. So I don't.
You have to bring that back here.
That's what I'm asking. Is there gonna be a resolution at the next meeting?
Well, I don't think
To
you're
cover
coming
those two?
conclusion on that, but we'll get that to you as soon as we can. A definitive answer.
That brings up another good question. I know Administrator Collard is really busy now with everything he's got going on. Is he finding time, not picking on anybody, to get all this thing done? He's got to do the minutes. It's supposed to be put out, once they're supposed to be there a week ahead of time. They're not getting put online and all that stuff. Just asking, Mike, or is it taking too much time? Getting one of the clerks or something, or you also, John, because you're his boss, so.
I don't want to speak for Mike, but I can tell you that we're very close to capacity right now. Right. And also training a new finance director who's doing a fantastic job running the roads, by the way, from the private sector to government. And a lot of the other projects that we do have going on through the county. It is a little bit of a stretch, but I want to make sure we have our best people in this.
And I'm not saying we're not, I'm just saying, is it too much? Is it, do we expect too much out of Mike doing all those other things? Plus this.
I can have that conversation with Mike and Paul after this meeting.
Okay.
And see if there's some other staff we don't want to.
Okay.
Or a member of the commission. I mean, it's up to the body to determine who its secretary will be and who will take minutes. Maybe we should put that as an agenda item on the next agenda, but I'd be delighted to have someone else taking the minutes, and certainly I do have trouble finding time to do it.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm asking. I know that some of the committee had asked, well, we didn't get the minutes at all this and that time, so that's why I'm raising the question.
Eugene, one of them.
Minutes were done earlier. The agenda I sent out to you on Wednesday, but didn't hear back, and it took a long time to draft all the resolutions.
Should she not be down here last hour to take a look at what we got to. The resolutions on the next agenda.
I mean, we'll take a look at that, but she's had a lot of capacity, but I'll look at the corporation council and finance, see if I can find other staff to come and help us. I'll give us some options, and I think it's wise for us to consider who to take minutes and be the secretary of this next time. I mean, I'll bring you some options, some options for that. So when will that meeting be? Yeah.
I'll look through tomorrow.
Hopefully so. And Mike, I do just want to say I do appreciate that we gave you a really aggressive timeline in the next meeting and we did get a lot of stuff done. I do want to recognize that.
Yeah. We're meeting on Wednesdays now.
I don't think that's, you had something on Wednesdays that was conflict or?
We were doing Thursday.
We're doing.
And then we went to a Wednesday because they had to come for this.
This week, yeah.
Well, we done now before the holiday.
I'd like to.
I'd like to give keep on going, just because. I'm the player that I don't really do, my wife will do more projects. Better off.
No, I think consider the solid.
Right.
Looking at January for another.
No, you can have a meeting whenever you want, but just figure out who's gonna write the agenda and who's gonna prepare the minutes, because it won't be me.
Draft resolution.
Saying, I'm looking after the holidays now.
I was.
Is on Thursday, 12th, the 19th, and the 26th.
And what's your board?
The board meeting is always the third Tuesday, which is the 17th. We're talking Thursdays. Yes.
Something made. I think we would put on a board agenda. With the back up.
The board before, because they have a period of time which you have to do in by. Okay,
Resolutions are supposed to be submitted 2 weeks before the meeting date. That was literally impossible for this week meeting because of the way it was scheduled.
looking, you're not
The board meeting's on the 17th, the Monday before is the 10th. So we'd have to have it stick on a Thursday, be the best.
And there'll be a funny board meeting that we'll have on that, the 17th, we have, how many resolutions do we just send them? Okay. Is there more that we want to send in that meeting than we're going for? I guess who's asking the question.
The last one.
No, that's, these are going to January's board meeting. These right here. are-
Right. So we don't have to look at another
You're
meeting.
not looking.
So after that.
Right.
Yeah. then
That's what I was asking.
You can get it into the 12th and 19th.
February meeting was moved to the 28th.
February is moved to 28th. I mean, I think the 19th will be good. Let's wait and see what happens after the board meeting.
19th,
What was that land conservation? So is that a resolution? That was on board?
Yes.
Well, make sure that's.
So meeting the 19th of January.
Place, same time, 1 o'clock.
19th,
Yep, 19th, 1 o'clock.
everybody, 1 o'clock.
Story was.
So back to yours, the resolution will be drafted for the next meeting. So we go to February.
That's okay.
Yeah, see, using the process we're using it, backs everything up.
But we didn't do a resolution today.
Yeah.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Was there a motion on the meeting date or we're just setting that by?
Oh, the 19th at 1.
1 o'clock, same place.
19th, 1 o'clock here. I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion to adjourn? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. You go in one of them. Oh,